Comedy Album Book Club. This week, we catch up with Alicia Carrick of Big Chick Energy. We sit down and we talk about Deborah Kimmett's Downward Facing Broad. Stay tuned and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Matt Dill. This week I am joined by my friend Alicia Carrick. She is a member of the sketch comedy troupe Big Chick Energy. You may have seen them in Toronto. You may have seen them in Newfoundland. In a few weeks' time, you're going to get a chance to see them in Hamilton. We had an awesome time catching up, talking about comedy, and in specific, talking about Deborah Kimmett's album, Downward Facing Broad. Deborah is a Canadian comedian. She is based out of Toronto. You may have seen her performing on stages in the city or across the country. She's appeared on The Debaters 26 times, is a regular at the Winnipeg Comedy Festival, and has been on CBC Radio 1's Definitely Not the Opera. She is incredibly funny, so if you haven't already listened to it, check out her album. Now, before we get this interview started, it's been a while since I talked to Alicia. My brain for a long time was really foggy. I had trouble just focusing. As you know, I have been doing mind magic for like a bunch of weeks now, the mental performance shot, and it's been great for getting my brain ready and active and clear to go in all of these interviews. It's 100% of my vitamin C and D per shot. Do it once in the morning, and it just is a kickstart to my heart, as they say. Now, it's not being a coffee replacement. I've never really done a lot of coffee. First time I had coffee recently, it did not end well. It was just a mess. But it has been a good aid in getting me going and getting me started for the day with a lot less stress, just very chill. It's doctor validated, created by an advisory board of medical researchers. It was in development for over a decade, hundreds of iterations, and what we get is the magic of mind magic. So with that said, I'm going to put that mind magic to use. Check out the link in the description. And thanks for listening to Comedy Album Book Club.
No, you can't sit on a couch now. No, you have to keep going. The only time you're allowed to sit on a couch is if you're at a mindfulness meditation retreat. And not that I'm ever going to be a grandmother, I know that, because my kids have cats. And I have to say, I'm so much more patient with my grandcats than I was with my own cats. Don't feel sorry for me, don't feel sorry for me. It's fine. At least with grandcats, you never have to go see a school play. My kids have therapy cats that they can pet when they look at their student loan debt. And they rescue everything. My daughter drove 2.5 hours to rescue a squirrel that fell out of a tree. And I said, it couldn't be a very smart squirrel if it fell out of a tree. And they're like, Mom! Because apparently me having any fun at all embarrasses them. Yeah. I raised my children very liberally. You know, I mean, I'm not walking around saying adulting or anything, but, you know, I was like, what are your feelings? Pass the sharing stick. But somehow now I've turned into Archie Bunker. Everything I say shocks them. I was saying, well, the other day I met this Italian woman in the coffee. They're like, Mom! Like, you can't say it. You can't identify her race unless it's relevant to the story. And I'm like, well, how do you know it's not relevant? Because you never even let me finish my sentence. Mom, you can't other her. Well, you're othering me. And you're just trying to micromanage this conversation. That's because I have social anxiety. I know. And that's what makes our family funny. So practice it a little more and you can make some cash. Othering. You know what's got other in it? Mother. They're lovely children. They are fantastic, especially if you look at them on their Instagram. They always got their hair in front of their eyes, and they're just like, hashtag vibe, hashtag restoring my heart, hashtag empowerment, hashtag my life is beautiful, hashtag... They're a bit delicate, though. A bit delicate. You know, everyone says millennials are so entitled. No, they're not. They're not entitled. They work 3 jobs to make the same amount of money I did 30 years ago. They're not entitled. They're adaptive. They have to adapt. And they feel the pressure all the time because they look at the 20-year-olds and they don't have a generation gap anymore. They have a decade gap. They're 30, they see a 20-year-old, they're like, oh, great. Look at those 20-year-olds, they know nothing. Yeah. Kids are faster, right? There's a quickening in the world. There's a 15-year-old girl who got nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. There's a 10-year-old virtuoso on a 12-string guitar. And then there's what next? Like a kid going down the birth canal decides to split an atom? They're coming out of the womb with like marching little protest signs, right? They're like, we gotta evolve, you know? So my kids, and they're like 10 now. 10 is the new 30. And we don't know what to do with them. We don't know how to lead them. Older people don't know how to lead them. Did you see the walkout today, all the schools protesting Ford, and we don't know how to, there's a teacher on the news, get back here. Okay, like if you're gonna go, take your fruit roll-ups. You don't want to be in jail without a fruit roll-up. It's fast, and they have to adapt. And I think that's it. That's why we parented them that way, because evolution is perfect. First off, my parents were bossy. That's because they had a lot of kids and they couldn't afford us to stay around. So they're a boss, get them out, make it miserable for them. Then, my kids were democratic and we were like, okay, talk about your feelings. What do you want? What do you feel? And they go, I'm 2. I want to run in front of a car. And we didn't raise kids that are scared of us. We raised peers. Right? And that's great because they don't have any money and I don't have any money, so we're just going to be living in a little tiny house, which is code for trailer park, but we'll be family. And I think evolution
there you go. Welcome to Comedy Album Book Club. This week I am joined by Alicia Carrick. So it's been ages. Like I was about to say it, and then I was like, let's save this for the podcast. I haven't seen you since Sketchfest, where you and Big Chick Energy killed. So yeah, you've been enjoying. Did Newfoundland after that together, and like, so how's it been performing?
It's been so fun. So Sketchfest happened and we were just sort of on this high. Then we applied to the Newfoundland Sketchfest, which was their first Sketchfest ever, which I was sort of like shocked to hear about, but whatever. And we got in, like not really thinking that we would. And I had just like quit my job like the December before. So I was like, running on empty in terms of like bank account.
Yeah.
But then realized I had some credit card points, which was an added bonus because I was like, oh man, if the girls go and I don't go, I'm going to be so sad. And so I got to go and we had a great time.
Excellent.
Like the Newfoundland audiences or the St. John's audience was just tops. And like we go in and the host was already like, oh, they're ready for you. Because it was the 9:00 like second show. So people were like a little toasty. Beautiful. And they were, it was in like a rec center that totally brought me back to my like teenage days hanging out at a Legion. And it was just like pipe and drape and like lights that I would have in my bedroom around my mirror. And just like, it was just low budge, awesome.
That's great.
Vibe. And the bartender Winnie, she was just like this older 65-year-old woman who's probably just had a life, and she had a tattoo. It was Roman numerals right on her chest, probably size like 72, and it just said art. I'm like, oh, so
they
cool.
live. They know how to live there. Yeah,
they do. So it was a great time. And so then we got to just kind of ride the Sketchfest high, do the Newfoundland thing, and then we were like, okay, let's take a little bit of a breather, and then we have Hamilton Fringe coming up in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome. So excellent. Well, you chose Deborah Kimmett's Downward Facing Broad. So what inspired you to choose that album?
So it was a little bit of a backstory as to how this came to be. I don't know if your audience or you are likely familiar with the improviser and hilarious person, Adam Colley. Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I had a message from Deb in my Facebook saying, Adam Colley recommended you for some photography. And I was like, that's so kind. Adam and I have only shared words on baseball teams a couple of times, and I didn't even know if he knew I had a camera. So that's so sweet. And so we just kind of like went back and forth, and we were thinking about getting together to do a photo shoot. Unfortunately, it has not transpired yet, but maybe one day, because she's having a banger every year. She put out a book. She was doing a new podcast with a friend of hers. And going to Winnipeg Comedy Festival, as well as putting out or getting a new album together. I don't think it's out yet though. So she was just having a banger of a year, and we had one phone conversation just about being a woman in comedy, and also being unemployed at the time. She was just like so inspirational and full of wisdom, and just a super, super kind person to a stranger on the other end of the phone. And I had not listened to her stuff. Like, I watched a couple videos on YouTube, and I was like, this woman cracks me up. And then you asked me to do this, and I was like, who do I love in the Toronto scene? And like some other people came to mind, but then I was like, oh my God, Deb, I gotta just sit down, listen, and enjoy. And I did.
Oh. One of the things I really loved about it is, as far as comedy is concerned, I love watching or listening to comedy from perspectives that are not, my own. Richard Pryor was a big inspiration growing up. Sarah Silverman was one of my favorite comedians in the 90s. So it's like, these different voices, and it's so rare to see not just a woman in comedy, because women in comedy are becoming thankfully more regular and frequent, but an older person in comedy and an older woman in comedy. So, I mean, she's, this is 2019. She was 62 at the time. So she's pushing 70 now. And that's awesome. There's so much in this where I was like, this is resonating a lot. Kind of thing. So it's like,
we're not even that old, and like, it's
I turned 50 I turned 50 in a few weeks. So October, So it's like, but I'm not. That said, I'm not 62 as she was at the time. But it's just really resonant, and I thought that was great to hear that voice.
Yeah. I was thinking a lot of my mom listening to this. And just envisioned like her listening and hearing her as like semi-Irish like cackle. Whether she would laugh at it, I hope she would, but I also have this feeling of that she'd be like, oh, all these jokes about old age and so she's just like sort of she's 71, 72 years old. I'm like, you would get this.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking she's laughing, and so I can't wait to listen to her with my mom. But God, she just touched on so many parts of, yes, getting older, but then, you know, having kids. And I love that she was ripping on her kids.
Yeah.
And then some of the like millennial, like younger speak, like the ghosting bit. There was just so much there. And like, I love the just general loneliness.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, that's something, especially, you know, getting older and being single, that's a lot of people struggle with. Like, and that was the thing too. It wasn't all, there's a variety of emotions that run through it. I mean, it's all funny, but like some of it was a little down, some of it was a little up. So it's not just like this one layer of like, yeah, hey, hi, yeah. Like one of the bits that I really enjoyed was how she talked about millennials, because she is a boomer, or early stage Gen X or tail end boomer, and not in a judgment sort of way, in a strictly generational way. And she's very positive, and she's like, yeah, they don't have a lot of fun or time and can't buy a house because they're working 3 jobs to earn what I made 30 years ago. And it's true. Like it's, you know, and it's nice to hear an older voice, because I mean, I often find even my, you know, I'm mid Gen X, and many of my peers will crap on millennials. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, we didn't have it easy, but they had it even less easy. So it's like, yeah.
I totally enjoyed how she like shone a bit of a light on how fast things are moving. And it's not necessarily a generational gap, it's a decade gap.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And how there was sort of like there's like a spiritual aspect to it too. And in those parts where she would dip and just kind of go into this like super real moment of like, yeah, this whole, we're busy now, as opposed to when she was, you know, probably my age, mid 30s, going like, oh, how you doing? Fine was the regular thing to say back. But then now it's just busy, this being this badge of honor. Yeah. But like this fast paced world is not all it's cracked up to be. And it's so different from different generations. And it's, I love how she kind of weaved this, you know, pulling herself out, seeing this 360 view of what everyone's going through.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like and I mean, I say this as a person with 3 active podcasts, 1 in pre-production, and 1 that I've been talking back and forth about producing for somebody else, and also occasionally getting a stage time. And so, like, we commodify our life. We you know, we turn it into like, try to like, how can we make this meaningful and achieve something with every moment of our waking life? So it's, which I don't think is healthy, you know, and I mean, and that's something that I think she calls out in this in a really nice way.
Yeah. And like you just said, how do we make it meaningful? But then when meaning is directly or correlated with money, you know, and it's just, you know, Instagram, TikTok, and trying to be viral is like, what I saw a stat the other day that was like 65% of like 14 to 21 year olds refer to themselves as content creators, or identify as content creators. We're literally walking commercials now. So like,
and I mean, even I was watching this one video, sort of tangentially off of that, on Instagram and TikTok. And what's happening now is, because they've got stores integrated into, like, a buy function integrated into your posts, it's pushing people to basically become salespeople for drop shipping Chinese crap manufacturing companies. But
Like,
yeah,
or like that lamp. Let me just click on it, and it's like boom.
Yeah, exactly. And it's bonkers, and it worries me because like I have a niece who's super awesome and creative, but she's really on social media, and she's cool so far. I just worry about being online that much. Like I was born in a time and grew up in a time where the internet wasn't a thing in people's homes. And it's like I can't.
Half-Life 2, Matt.
Yeah,
just not as long.
Yeah, I mean, like we had a period of time where we weren't, and I can't imagine growing up in a world where you've been online since you're born, basically.
Oh, and then this goes into the whole conversation of like kids have forgotten how to play.
Yeah. It's
Go back to Deb.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things I also really love is her ability to paint a picture. Like she's talking about that Aquafit class and the fight that breaks out because the women, but then she's like mummeration of underarms, and I'm just like, that's a beautiful use of a word that a lot of people won't get, but if you do, because like you know what a murmuration is, right? It's when starlings sort of take off in this big sort of flock of thousands of birds and sort of like dance in the sky.
Oh,
yeah.
I think I heard the word, but I didn't know what it meant. Okay.
Yeah. So look it up on YouTube. Look up murmuration, and it's specifically starlings, but it's really wild to look at. And
yes, I know exactly what we're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, but that is like old people like arm fat, like loose arm flesh flapping around, and it's a visual painted so vividly, and it's so funny. It's so hilarious.
So yes, she is a storyteller, and I also know that Deb offers online writing classes.
Oh.
So like after listening to this, like she does paint a great picture. And like so much of me was like, oh, I wish this was like a video special. And maybe it is. I could have looked it up on YouTube, but you just know that she's making wild faces too.
Yeah.
You can feel that with just her words. And then you hear a laugh, but you don't hear the joke per se, or like the extra little bit. And you're just like, oh, she's probably rocking it. And I love the bit where she has that like background track playing when she talks about when she goes into her house at 4:00, nobody's there because her kids are grown. She doesn't, or she's not with anybody. And she starts talking to herself, and whatever the lonely song comes on.
and the cat grandma bit, I find hilarious because Heather's mom.
Refresh me on that one. What was that one?
The cat grandma, where she's like grandma to her, she's never going to have grandkids. She's just a cat grandma. Yes. And that's 100% Heather's mom. She'll come over to visit the boys and bring them treats. One time she's like, oh, I just stopped at the store and bought them some treats. And she bought like maybe $50 worth of like 20 or 30 bags of treats. And it's like, we don't have room for this many treats. Yeah. Why did you? And she's like, well, they were on sale. And I'm like,
damn it.
Like, it's very sweet of you, but we give them this much. They'll be in cat diabetes. You know? Like, they can't do that.
To worry about.
Yeah. But it's it's all from a place of realness without even when she goes like into the darker area of like death, it's never depressing, no. Like I found that,
she's and just because the album being called Downward Facing Broad, like she strikes me as a woman who maybe has a spiritual practice, who has, and she mentions reading. She's like, being 60 something, we've already read the books on being in the now. And, being on the path or whatever the hell. And she sounds like someone who has just like embraced that as part of life as opposed to the scary the scary darkness that will come.
and one of the things, like, there's an incredible variety in the stuff, because you've got like some very inside baseball shitty behavior of people in comedy towards women.
Yes.
You've got some political-ish stuff with gun control in the States, and she closes on that one joke, Kenny's tiny pistol, with like a really solid burn. But just the fact that, and I have like Heather's family used to go to Florida, and they had friends down there, and like they had guns in every room, like just hidden in drawers in every room. It's just such a different culture. So she has she has this real range, and then medical expense to her vibrator.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I in the audience loved that. So it's a journey. It's got some real pace and levels to it.
It sounds like it sounded like a variety of ages in the audience too. Because there were some parts where she was what did she say? I think it was when she mentioned that her body yawned and never came back, and you just hear a that's resonating for sure. Very true. But then it's just so much of. And then, the Facebook bit, and like the Facebook fighting. I laughed so hard when she was talking about the one person who posts a picture of a potato from her garden. And then she comments, "Isn't that the potato from last year?" And then the back and forth that takes place in public on the Facebook comments. And then somebody messaging her saying, "That is the same potato."
And it is like that. It isn't the funny, like, and for me, what I found extra funny there, because like there's so many people over the years I just added because they're in comedy and new friends and stuff like that. And it's like, she's like, "I've never met you before. I don't know you."
I didn't know you were a comic. I didn't know you were being funny. And then the punchline, "So I blocked her." As you should have, Deb. Like, oh God. Yeah. Sorry, Ruby's here now. Sorry.
No worries.
If you hear any honks of her sheep toy. Oh.
Hey, nothing like a sheep toy to punch up a podcast. So
wait till the dog upstairs comes home. You'll hear something.
But and closing in on 50, I really appreciate. Like, my body is going off the wheels are coming off the cars.
What are you feeling?
I'm feeling what she's feeling. It's just like, the yawn, and it just never came back. Like, it's like
there's no body coming in the mail.
yeah. You don't get a replacement. Like, my one finger, it doesn't work anymore. It's stuck like this. I have to go like that. They gave me like this. They call it trigger lock.
Yes.
They gave me an injection, and you get any more than 3 injections will cause permanent nerve damage. So the next thing is to cut open my finger and operate on the tendons. And I'm like,
what the
yikes. Hell? So like that started happening. I've got tinnitus in my left ear. Just one day I woke up and it's like, so I've got an appointment for that. My foot's weird and my hips are weird, and the diabetes. Your body just starts going off the rails, and the best you can do is to keep it up. But that doesn't, like I said, I stopped maturing at 13. Like, the listeners can't see the wall of lightsabers behind me. So that hasn't changed. I still feel young.
Yes. How old are you in your mind?
I'd say I'm 13, 14, like a teenager, like a teenage kid. Right. not even a cool teenager. Yeah. Like, I'm just teenage enough that I can say teenager without lying, but not teenager enough to stop playing with my toys.
No.
How about you? How old do you feel inside?
I would say like I'm in my early 20s, maybe. I used to say 18 specifically, but then I was like, no, maybe 21 now. Yeah. I don't know if that'll ever change. Like, I asked my dad the same question, and he's like, 28.
Yeah.
Where do these? They're just arbitrary. It's like what was it age that made such a mark? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I was doing cardio at 21. I'm not now. It felt decent.
Yeah.
But
Oh, you're walking
no.
the dog, so that gets you out and moving.
But I've recently
yeah,
gotten a new job and I'm sitting more and it sucks.
oh, yeah.
Sitting.
You got to watch out for that. That's what got me my weight problems. I went from working in food services to a desk job, and then never recovered.
It's too easy to go to Tim's every day.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But it's funny though. Like I was a 40-year-old 13-year-old, and I'm a 13-year-old 49-year-old. It's like I was always like serious, and like when I was little, and like I wanted to be an adult, and now it's just like, oh, I'm good. Like there's not a lot to like nothing that you want at that age.
My mom always tells the story of when I was young, because my brother and sister were older than me, and so just the youngest kid, right? The young kid problems. But I would say, when do I get to be the boss? And she'd say, well, and this is me under 10. So she said, when you're 10. And I go, really? And she says, yep. Like, what a lie.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Growing up, it was like James and Siobhan, whenever they were just like tormenting me, they'd just be like, don't look at me. And then one day I'll be boss. Like, what is the boss? I just get to stay up till 10? Like,
yeah.
Back problems. This is where my parents were, probably.
Yeah. Now, and kind of in that vein, like she talks about retirement and how it feels like we'll never retire, kind of thing. Like it's
like that's
there's
the true concept that we won't. It's just like, and she says like, I don't know who I am if I'm not working. But it's like, Ruby, are you humping? Oh, stop! Get out of here. But it's true. Like I don't know. Like it's I guess the pandemic was a moment of feeling retired when the world stopped. And but she, like, doing comedy, I know she's doing the writing thing. I want to just call her back and be like, Deb, like, what other jobs did you have? Were you always doing comedy? Like, just tell me more. And like, are you still doing it? What is that full-time job? Like, what does that look like?
And I think that's kind of one of the things that, because I know a lot of young comedians who are very sweet people and work very hard, but they got into comedy at a really young age and didn't really ever have a life. And I find that their comedy often leans towards being very surface until they get older and have got more experience. But it's like, it's funny. Like I remember when we were taking improv together, it was a secret for the special insider fact for the audience.
Yes.
We met doing improv at Second City. And none of you would believe it. Every once in a while, I'd bust out a story like, oh, I DJ'd here, or I did that, or I worked at the burlesque group. You guys are like, what? When did you do that? I'm like, at the time, I was like, I'm 45 or whatever. And like, oh my God. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you have a life, then you have experiences to draw from. And I mean, that's not to say these people who are young don't have experiences to draw from. It's just, if all you do is live comedy, that limits your pool.
Totally.
So and having a job and having a life and having experiences beyond that, I think really help do that. And it's like, in the bit Mentor, she's talking about this when she was a young actor coming to Toronto, and there was this older woman who sort of mentored her, and she tells a story about how that she met this man and he kissed her, and then next thing she knows, she's like holding this book that he gave her in the subways of Britain.
Oh my God.
And it's like, oh, this is sweet. Oh my God, this is dark, because it was Hitler.
Yeah. And the book was Mein Kampf.
Yeah. And it's like, whoa, that did not end where I expected to. But and it speaks to her quality of storytelling and comedy, in that when she gets there, it's really funny because it's like completely unexpected.
Big fan.
But rings of truth, because something like that could ring very false, but it rings of truth, and it just really works.
Yes, and I appreciate you saying that because, like, as someone that's always kind of wanted to do stand up, and you do it so well, and having like all of the life experience that you do, like makes it right. Like you have a deeper pool.
Yeah, yeah.
You have a lot of material, and as someone that kind of got into comedy, I don't want to say like too late or anything. Like, sure, I'm like, oh, I wish I did this as soon as I got to Toronto, but I didn't. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm here now. It's fine. But like, I've also been at like this. I'm at a new job, but the job I had before, I had it for 8 years, and that's a long time to do to be in one environment. Sure, I had different jobs within the environment, but like. It wasn't a lot of new stuff happening, and I think like as someone that I would like to take like a storytelling or stand-up course or a writing course. Like English was always my favorite subject. My dad was an English teacher for 35 years. And it was a practice that I had in high school and university only, but I enjoyed it. But the writing part and reflection part and thinking about your life and drawing from your own experiences is a practice.
Yeah.
And when if like bringing up like younger comedians or people that have been only doing comedy, like they're still practicing the craft, but they might not have been in different pools or different environments. Right. And I think about that with myself and being like, I don't know if I have much to write about, like, or to pull from, having been in kind of like, and that's just my like career time. Like I think about it with improv too. Where you're like, what characters can I think about? Or I'm like, oh, I was sort of in like the same situation where, there are some folks that are like, oh, I'm just going to make a little sideways jump career-wise, and that are plotting and planning and being strategic about their career. I'm like, good for you. Do I wish I was that person? Maybe. Like, do I wish I was naturally like ambitious? A little bit. A little bit. But it's not to say like I don't think it's bad necessarily to just be kind of like seeing where life takes you, or to coast, I feel like has a negative connotation, but I don't mean it that way at all. But like, it's kind of like, life takes you in ways that you don't know what the joke will be later.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
the writing will be later.
To your credit, like you are an incredibly talented character actor kind of creator. Like every role
just watched SNL.
Yeah, well, I mean, hell, you could easily be on SNL. Like the kinds of characters you create and put up on stage. Like there was a sketch fest. You had that one sketch where it was a OBGYN clinic, and you're like a doctor mechanic, and you're sort of up there with Emily, and Sam was the patient.
Emily was too. Emily came in as the other mechanic.
Yeah, Emily was coming in and doing that PSA. I mean, you really embodied that character, and you brought a lot to it, and like every time you guys take the stage, I find that you all are very good at it, and you in particular really bring a lot. So don't sell yourself short. I know
it, and thank you for saying that. And shout out Sam, that was a banger of a sketch she wrote.
Yeah.
And but in terms of like sketch and improv is like the safe space,
Yeah.
Like stand up scares me.
I find
because of the writing, and then I think of like my I guess my daddy issue would be like my dad reviewing an essay.
Yeah.
Like, well, we could really rework this, and I'd be like, no, let me do it. I'm the boss of the essay.
It's funny. It's like I have similar but different hierarchy. For me, improv is my safe space because you have a backup. It's sort of very fluid. I do worry about letting other people down.
Oh God, same.
So it's kind of my middle neutral space.
Yeah.
But sketch, because it's scripted, I worry that much more because I drop a line, I miss a cue, that screws everybody else up. But stand up, I'm up there on my own. And I think, I've increasingly become looser with my material over the years. Like I would write it down to the beats, but now I'm finding it more organically. Like I will just have like maybe point form sheets, like set lists, where I'll just go up and sort of find my path between the jokes and not necessarily have it all planned out. And I mean, that doesn't mean that works for everybody or that's how you should do it. Everybody has their own method, but I find it more. Yeah, it's practice. But that said, the only person who I can let down up there is myself.
Yeah.
And the audience to a certain degree. But if I screw up a joke and they still laugh, I'm the only one who knows I screwed up that joke. So so it's like, I find it more forgiving in a lot of ways. But you are up there on your own. It's a tightrope walk, as opposed to like a relay race that like sketch is.
Oh man.
So yeah,
it is. And well, with sketch, like that's where like the improv training I'm so grateful for, because I don't know what show you saw of Sketchfest, but there was one where I forgot the sheet. Were you at that one?
I was the one where the prop was missing, so Emily was running back and forth. That one. Yeah.
And we're out there, and it's just like you're out there feeling like naked on stage, but then you're just like, oh, default improv.
yeah. And, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, so many comedians in stand-up, I find, are kind of snobby about not everyone, and they've got. I think it's certain groups that are snobby about improv. They're just like, ugh, and I'm like, but that's what we're doing. Like I was having a conversation the other day with Melanie Dolling, and she brought it up. Yeah, she's like, that's all riffing is improv. So it's just embrace it. I mean, yeah, you don't necessarily need to do an entire improv scene every time you're on stage, but just appreciate the skill. It's like pop music and classical music. These are all different genres, and
that's true.
They're all good.
You're right. I love thinking about improv as a genre, or like just music or riffing or jamming. Like that's such a flow state that you can get into. And there's nights where you're on and nights where you're not. And oh man, like just like my last couple of beer comedies, I've been so in my head on like the Saturday nights, or I'm just like, okay, we gotta go give her. And then I'm just like, I'm just, and like, it's, sometimes you're there, sometimes you're not. And it's all about like the presence that you can bring to it and the letting go. And like, that's where with like regular Second City classes, like that was so fun. That was so fun. Are you taking any classes right now? I have to ask you.
I gotta go back. I literally work next door to Second City now. My office moved. I'm the building up the street. So wow. I and like to the point where we had our office summer festivities at Second City.
Oh, nice. Perfect. You're back in the
yeah. I'm looking at signing up for the long form class. There just to get the experience of long form, because the A through E, it's now a completely different thing, and they busted my chops for a little bit, but then they eventually are like, oh yeah, you can do it, because I finished the entire program, and like then it was the pandemic, so it's not like they're like, oh, it's a different program now and you have to take it over again, and I'm like, I'm not taking the same 5 classes. And they were eventually like,
thousands of dollars out of me, Second City. Relax. Okay.
Yeah.
That's another topic.
Yeah. So they did. I sort of showed them what I'd been doing and that I'd been active, and they're like, okay, sure, not a problem. You can sign me up for this intro to long form.
Just Google Matt Ardell, please. Hello.
I wasn't that much of a prick. And I was like, no, I ran this festival and blah, blah, blah. But
actually, Matt is the improv snob.
But speaking of flow, one of the things I really loved about this was the flow of the album. It had a very natural progression. and it started from like, this place of midlife crisis and podcasting and scaring the petites and all of that stuff. And then ended like, and it sort of crescendoed and then ended in like material about death and the horribleness of humanity, but it still felt like it ended on like that hardwood joke. It still felt like it ended on a good bang. Like it still felt good at the end. And I thought that was really impressive to that flow. Absolutely.
And to talk about those subjects and not get like, ooh, as the listener, like, this is the practice. And like, Deb, you are an inspiring woman. Like, it's been a long time. Like, and I was so grateful that you asked me to be on this, and like, it forced me to check out a stand-up album. Like, you're inundated with however many Netflix specials there are, and then like on my Facebook, like it's reels after reels of oftentimes the same people, and I still can't remember their names because I was like, oh, there's some that I've like, my eyes have been on that for more than 10 seconds, so I'm like, oh, maybe I'll go and find who that person was. Never saved a video, didn't have a name, so I'm like, who the hell? Anyway, but it was a treat, like you said in the beginning of the podcast, to hear an older woman's voice, because there was also a comfort there. If I can say that, like, I don't know if Deb would like that, but it's motherly. So, but maybe she will, because she did do that one bit of her being like, oh my God, I did it. I was one of those older women out in public talking to a stranger about how they should appreciate those times where their kids are just pissing them off, and like, he's just humping beside me. Oh God, stop, Ruby.
That is 100% my mom. Heather will go shopping with her, and my mom will come back and like talk about how she got into this big conversation about death with this woman in the checkout line, and I'm like,
but isn't that cool?
It's one of those things that I'm like, it makes her happy, and when she does it, it never feels like she engages in a way that the person seems to want to talk. But I was like, how do you do that? Like, I can't talk to randos. It's an art.
I can't, and I do. I am my father's daughter. He'll go to a bar and just talk to anybody, and I'm the person at the concert that's like, that's a really cool hat. Where'd you get it? It was literally, Wes and I went to go see Paul Langlois of the Tragically Hip has his own Paul Langlois band, and we saw them at the concert hall maybe a month ago, and we're talking to this guy in the audience, or I am, because I was like, I've had some drinks. I'm chatty naturally, and then like catch me at the right time after a couple drinks, and I'm like, I won't let you go. No, I do know when to go. I am aware. But this one guy had a really great hat, and Wes has been in the place of like, I'm 34 going on 35, and I don't know if I can wear baseball caps my whole 30s into my 40s. Like, what hat do I graduate to? Is it the paperboy cap? And he's like that guy over there, look at his hat. I'm like, let's go talk to him. And so then we go talk to him, and I'm like, where'd you get your hat? And he tells me it was like somewhere in Florida, I think, to bring it back to Florida. But he was with his wife, who passed away. And then we got into this whole talk, and not that I cried, because like once that comes up, you're like, is it an exit, or is it, does somebody want like to talk about it?
Transition. Yeah. My sister's the same way. Like she and my mom and you are natural. For me, I'm just like, I'm feeling uncomfortable the entire time. It's just like, I'm going to seem like a creep or a weirdo if I talk to you, kind of thing. Like, that's just my resting fear state kind of thing. So, because so many men suck, and so many of us are creeps and weirdos. So
true, but there's always an opportunity to be proven or prove that theory wrong, right?
Yes,
and that is true. And as someone who knows you and I like to think I can read vibes. Like, immediately if someone is creep, you could never, you're miles away, light years.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
If you do feel the urge to chit chat, man,
I will. In real life, in the open air, we'll see how that plays out.
No, Heather's got it.
Yeah. If people wanted to find you online, where could they look?
Okay, that's a great question. So bigchickenergysketch.com is our go-to website. And from there, you've got Instagram, which is like the one social media thing that I use. And I recently changed my viewing profile thing to private. So you actually can't find me there. That's only because I started a new job. And then they were like, with like posts and stuff, make sure it's not too political. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really? But then I also understand it, because then, like, if a client checks you out and then you're like, but at the same time, do I want to? I was just had some moral back and forths.
It's hard. It's hard.
This topic.
Yeah. I all of my social media is friends only, and
Yes.
I'm very selective about what coworkers I add as friends. Nothing against my coworkers. It's just work life and outside work life are different pools, and it's
Talk about pool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But Instagram is where I share a lot of the Big Chick stuff. So there's also the Big Chick Energy Instagram, which is wide open.
And what date is the Hamilton Fringe shows?
Okay, that is an even better question that I'm prepared to answer. It is the third weekend in July. So I'm just double checking my dates so I don't mess this up. My golden opportunity to promote some show. Okay. We've got a show on the 20th. Oh, God, I don't even have times, do I? What a calendar. Oh, we've got a show at 3:00 on Saturday, July 20th. We've got a show. Why am I going backwards? Oh, Lordy Lou. Matt, you're going to have to edit. Okay, then we've got one 6:30 to 7:00 on Sunday, July 21st, and even the following weekend on Saturday at 7 p.m. And this is at the Staircase Theater on Dundurn Street North.
Awesome. So if you're in the GTA, I can't recommend them highly enough. Big Chick Energy. This is Alicia Carrick. Thanks for listening. Ooh. You've been listening to Comedy Album Book Club, a Far From Here comedy and ShowbizMonkeys.com co-production. Music today was performed and produced by Glenn Bouchamp, Tim Matthews, Edith Falkenberg, and Jim Spruill, also known as the Something Something Quartet. Remember to check out Mind Magic, link in the description. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week to Comedy Album Book Club.